The Korean Mafia boss watched his daughter cry in the cafe until the black waitress whispered, "She just needs a mom." The first time Kang Hyun-min brought his daughter to Solace Cafe, it was raining. Not the gentle Seattle drizzle that locals ignored, but a torrential downpour that turned streets into rivers and sent everyone scrambling for cover. He stood in the doorway, 6'2" of expensive suit in controlled desperation, cradling a 6-month-old baby who was screaming like the world was ending. Eliana Clark looked up from wiping down tables and felt her heart clench. The man was soaked despite the umbrella collapsed at his side. But it was the baby that caught her attention. Tiny fists flailing, face red with the kind of crying that spoke of exhaustion and confusion and needs that went beyond hunger or discomfort. "Sir, come in, please," Eliana called, already grabbing towels from behind the counter. "You're both getting soaked just standing there." The man hesitated. Something in his posture suggested he wasn't used to accepting help from strangers, then stepped inside. Water dripped from his coat onto the worn wooden floors, and the baby's cries echoed off the walls of the nearly empty cafe. It was 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, the dead zone between lunch rush and dinner prep. Only 2 other customers remained: an elderly woman reading a book in the corner, and a college student with headphones blocking out the world. Both looked up at the commotion, then quickly looked away with the studied indifference of people who learned not to get involved. "Table?" Eliana asked, though it was obvious the man needed more than just somewhere to sit. "Please." His English was perfect, barely accented, but his voice carried the roughness of someone running on empty. "I'm sorry about the noise. She's been crying for an hour. Nothing helps." Eliana led him to a corner, both, the one furthest from the other customers, and set down the towels. Up close, she could see more details: expensive watch, custom-tailored suit despite the rain damage, and dark circles under his eyes that suggested this crying was a regular occurrence, not a one-time event. "Let me get you some coffee," she said gently, "and maybe some warm water for her bottle." "She doesn't want a bottle. She doesn't want anything." He shifted the baby awkwardly, like he was still learning how to hold her, how to comfort her. "I've tried everything: feeding, changing, walking, singing. Nothing works." The baby's cries had reached that pitch that made Elena's teeth ache. Pure distress, the sound of a tiny human who couldn't articulate what was wrong, but knew with absolute certainty that something was missing. "What's her name?" Eliana asked, already moving to make coffee with the muscle memory of 3 years at this job. The man pronounced it carefully, beautifully. "Her mother chose it. It means elegant and graceful. Though right now she's neither." Her mother. Past tense. Eliana filed that away as she worked, grinding beans, pulling shots, the familiar routine grounding her. She'd been a waitress at Solace Cafe for 18 months. Another detour on the road to somewhere she hadn't quite figured out yet. 26 years old with a psychology degree she wasn't using, and student loans that never stopped growing. But she'd always been good with people, good at reading them, understanding what they needed even when they couldn't say it. And this man, this exhausted father with his screaming baby, needed more than coffee. She brought the coffee to his table, set it down carefully. "I'm Eliana, by the way. Eli for short." "Hyunmin." He didn't offer a last name, and Eliana didn't push. "Thank you for the coffee, and for not asking us to leave." "Why would I ask you to leave?" "Because she's loud. Because we're disrupting your other customers. Because..." He broke off as Ah's cries intensified, little body rigid with distress. "Because I clearly have no idea what I'm doing." The rawness in his voice hit Eliana square in the chest. She'd heard that tone before, in her psychology internships and crisis counseling sessions. The sound of someone drowning and trying desperately not to show it. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the baby. Hyunmin looked up sharply, suspicion and hope warring in his eyes. "You don't have to." "I know, but I've got 6 younger cousins and a knack for cranky babies. Let me try?" He hesitated for a long moment, then carefully transferred Ah into Eliana's arms. The baby was tiny, barely 15 pounds, with a shock of dark hair and her father's elegant bone structure. She screamed directly into Eliana's face, little fists batting at air. Eliana adjusted her hold automatically, decades of family gatherings and babysitting paying off. She cradled against her chest, one hand supporting the baby's head, the other rubbing gentle circles on her back. Then she started walking, a slow swaying motion, humming under her breath. "Hey, sweet girl," she murmured, voice low and soothing. "I know. I know everything's wrong and you don't know how to fix it. But you're okay. You're safe. I've got you." Sua's cries didn't stop immediately. That would have been miraculous. But they changed, became less frantic, more exhausted. Eliona kept moving, kept humming, a gospel hymn her grandmother used to sing. Something about the rhythm, the warmth, the gentle pressure seemed to reach through the baby's distress. "How are you doing that?" Hyunmin asked, voice thick with something that might have been desperation or relief or both. "I'm not really doing anything special, just being present with her." Eliana continued the swaying motion, barely aware of the other customers in the cafe, her entire focus on the tiny human in her arms. Sometimes babies cry because something's wrong, they're hungry or uncomfortable. But sometimes they cry because they're overwhelmed, because the world is big and confusing, and they don't understand why things feel different. "Different," Hyunmin repeated quietly. Sua's cries had softened to whimpers now, little hiccuping breaths against Elena's shoulder. Elena adjusted her hold again, finding that sweet spot where the baby could hear her heartbeat, could feel the rise and fall of her breathing. "My grandmother used to say that babies know things we forget as we grow up," Elena said, still moving in that gentle rhythm. "They know when something's missing, when the world isn't quite right. They can't explain it, can't articulate it, but they feel it, deep down." Hyunmin's hands clenched on the table. What if what's missing can't be replaced? The question hung in the air, weighted with grief Eliona couldn't fully understand yet. She looked at him properly. This beautiful, exhausted man who held himself like someone carrying the world on his shoulders. "Then we learn to live with the absence," she said gently, "and we find new ways to fill the spaces, different but still full, still meaningful." Sua's breathing had evened out, not asleep but calm, resting against Eleona's shoulder with the trust that babies give so easily when they feel safe. "She's been like this since..." Hyunmin's voice cracked. He started again. "For 6 months now, crying constantly, nothing soothes her. The doctors say she's healthy, that some babies are just fussy. But I know it's more than that. I know she feels..." He stopped, jaw clenched. Eleona looked down at Sue, at this tiny person who'd known loss before she could possibly understand it. Then she looked at Hyunmin, at the grief etched into every line of his face, and she understood. "How old was she?" Eleona asked softly. "When it happened?" Hyunmin's eyes snapped to hers, sharp and assessing. Then something in his expression crumbled. "Born at 3:47 a.m. Her mother died at 4:23 a.m. Complications. Internal bleeding they couldn't stop." The words were clinical, detached, the way people talked about unbearable things to survive them. But underneath, Eleona heard the ocean of grief. "So Sue, never." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Never knew her mother, never heard her voice except in the womb, never felt her hold her." Hyunmin's hands were shaking now. "And I don't know how to give her that, how to be enough, how to be both parents when I can barely function as one." Eleona's throat tightened. She looked down at Sue, now completely calm, tiny hand fisted in Eleona's shirt. 6 months of crying for something she couldn't name. 6 months of grieving a loss she'd never consciously known. "She just needs a mom," Eleona whispered, the words escaping before she could think better of them. Hyunmin made a sound like he'd been punched. When Eleona looked up, tears tracked down his face. Silent, devastating, the kind that came from grief too deep for sound. "I'm sorry," Eleona said quickly. "That was insensitive. I didn't mean..." "No." Hyunmin wiped his face roughly. "You're right. That's exactly what she needs. What I can't give her. What died with Haya." His voice broke on the name. "My wife, she was everything. Smart, kind, fierce. She would have been an incredible mother. And instead, Sue has me. Just me. And I'm failing her every single day." "You're not failing her," Elena said firmly, still holding the now calm baby. "You're here. You're trying. You brought her out in the rain because you were desperate to help her. That's not failing. That's loving her so much you'll do anything, even when you don't know what to do. Hyun-min looked at her like she'd offered water in a desert. You don't know me. You don't know what kind of man I am. I know you're a father who loves his daughter. That's enough for right now. They stayed like that for a long moment, Ileana swaying gently with Sue. Hyun-min, trying to compose himself. The cafe quiet around them. The elderly woman had left at some point. The college student remained oblivious in his headphones. I should go, Hyun-min said finally. I've taken enough of your time. You haven't taken anything, I offered. Eliona looked down at Sue, who was now completely relaxed. Tiny fingers curled around a strand of Eliana's hair. She's beautiful, by the way. Absolutely beautiful. She looks like Hi. Hyun-min's voice was soft with memory. Same eyes, same little nose. Every time I look at her, I see what I lost and what I have to protect. Eliona carefully transferred Sue, back to her father's arms. The baby stirred slightly but didn't cry, settling against Hyun-min's chest with a contentment that had been absent before. She calmed down with you, Hyun-min observed, wonder in his voice. In 5 minutes, you did what I've been trying to do for 6 months. It's not magic, just presence. Being fully present with her needs, even when we can't fix everything. Elena smiled gently. But Hyun-min, she calmed down with me because you brought her here, because you were desperate enough to try anything. That counts for something. He looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Can I ask you something that might sound strange? Of course. Could I bring her back, tomorrow, or whenever you're working? Not for you to fix her, he struggled for words, just to be around someone who seems to understand what she needs. Even if I don't know how to provide it yet. Eliona should have said no, should have maintained professional boundaries, recognized that she was a waitress, not a therapist, and this man was a stranger. But looking at Sue, peaceful for the first time in who knew how long, she found herself nodding. I work every afternoon, 2 to 9. You're welcome anytime. Relief washed over Hyun-min's face. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. He paid for his untouched coffee with $100 bill, refused change despite Eleona's protests, and left with Sue still calm against his shoulder. Through the window, Eleona watched him strap her carefully into a car seat in the back of a black Mercedes that probably cost more than Eleona made in 2 years. Well, said her co-worker Shayna, emerging from the kitchen where she'd been pretending not to watch. That was something. Just a dad who needed help with his baby. A dad in a $5,000 suit driving a Mercedes and looking at you like you hung the moon. Sure, just a regular guy. Shayna raised an eyebrow. Eli, that man is either very rich, very dangerous, or both. You better be careful. He's grieving. His wife died 6 months ago, which makes him vulnerable and desperate and possibly looking for someone to fill a role that can't actually be filled. Shayna's expression was concerned, not judgmental. I'm not saying don't help. I'm saying protect yourself. Don't get caught up in someone else's grief and lose yourself in the process. Good advice. Sensible advice. Advice Eleona fully intended to follow. Right up until Hyun-min walked back into the cafe the next day, Sue in his arms, hope and exhaustion warring in his eyes, and Eleona felt her careful boundaries begin to dissolve. He came every day for a week. Same time, 3:30 p.m., just before the early dinner crowd. Same corner booth, same expensive suits that seemed at odds with the cafe's worn furniture and chipped mugs. And every day, Sue would start to fuss within minutes of arriving, building to those soul-crushing wails that spoke of grief too deep for such a tiny person to carry. And every day, Eleona would finish whatever task she was doing, wash her hands carefully, and take Sue into her arms. The baby would calm within minutes. Not always immediately, not always completely, but enough. Enough for Hyun-min to drink his coffee while it was still hot. Enough for Sue to rest peacefully for a precious half hour. They talked during those moments, quiet conversations that felt too intimate for strangers, but too natural to resist. Eleona learned that Hyun-min ran a family business. He never specified what kind, and she didn't push. That he'd met Ji-hye in college, married her against his father's wishes, loved her with an intensity that death couldn't diminish. She wanted to be a painter, he told her on day 3, watching Sua sleep against Eleona's shoulder. Had this incredible talent for capturing light. She said she was going to paint Sua's nursery with a mural of the Korean countryside where she grew up. His smile was painful. The nursery is still bare white walls. I can't bring myself to paint it without her. Eleona learned about the sleepless nights, the well-meaning advice from relatives that didn't help, the nannies who'd quit because they couldn't handle Sua's constant crying, about Hyunmin's desperate attempts to be both mother and father to a daughter who seemed to know, on some instinctive level, that something vital was missing. The doctors say she's healthy, he said on day 5, running a hand through hair that was less perfectly styled than usual. That some babies are just difficult. But Eli, I know it's more than that. She's grieving. Somehow, she's grieving a mother she never consciously knew. Babies bond with their mothers in the womb, Eleona said softly, swaying gently as Sue, dozed. They know the sound of her voice, the rhythm of her heartbeat. When that suddenly disappears, when the world outside doesn't match what they expected, it's disorienting, frightening. Can she heal from that? Or will she always carry this absence? Eleona looked down at the baby in her arms, at the tiny face so peaceful in sleep. People are resilient, even little people. She'll find her way, especially with a father who loves her enough to sit in a cafe every day just so she can feel calm for 30 minutes. On day 7, Hyunmin brought flowers. Not for the table, but specifically for Eleona, a beautiful arrangement of white roses and purple irises. Thank you, he said simply, for giving her peace, for giving me hope that maybe I'm not completely failing at this. You're not failing, Eleona said, accepting the flowers with hands that trembled slightly. You're learning. There's a difference. I'd like to take you to dinner, Hyunmin said, the words coming out in a rush like he'd been rehearsing them. To thank you properly. Not with Sua. I'd get a sitter. Just us. If you're interested. Eleona's heart stuttered. She looked at this man who'd become familiar over the course of a week, this grieving father who looked at her like she was something precious, and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Hyunmin, I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because... How to explain the tangle of concerns? Because you're grieving. Because I don't want to be a replacement for something you lost. Because this... She gestured between them. Whatever this is, it's complicated. I know it's complicated. Hyunmin leaned forward, intensity in his dark eyes. I know I'm still grieving. I know it's only been 6 months and society says I should wait longer, be more careful. But Eli, you've given me something I didn't think I could have again. Moments where the grief doesn't completely swallow me, where I can breathe. Is it wrong to want more of that? I'm not a grief counselor. I can't fix what happened to you. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm asking you to have dinner with me, to let me get to know you outside of this cafe, outside of crisis management with my daughter, to see if this connection we have is real or just desperation on my part. He smiled, sad and hopeful. Please, just dinner. Eleona looked down at Sue, peacefully asleep in her arms, and then back at Hyunmin. Every logical part of her brain screamed this was a bad idea. But her heart, that traitor, whispered something different. One dinner, she heard herself say. No expectations beyond that. Hyunmin's smile was like sunrise. One dinner, Friday night? Friday night. But Hyunmin, I need you to be honest with me about who you are, what you do, what I'm walking into. Can you do that? Something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or resignation. Yes, I'll tell you everything. And then you can decide if you still want anything to do with me. The promise hung between them, weighted with significance neither fully understood yet. Friday arrived too quickly and not fast enough. Eleona changed outfits 4 times in her tiny apartment, finally settling on a simple burgundy dress that her sister had bought her last Christmas. Not too fancy, not too casual, hopefully appropriate for whatever Hyunmin had planned. He picked her up at 7 in the Mercedes, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt that made him look younger somehow, less weighted by responsibility. No Sue, this time. She was with his sister, he explained, a development that had required extensive planning and reassurances. You look beautiful, he said, and the sincerity in his voice made Elena's cheeks warm. You look different without a baby attached to you. I feel naked, like I'm missing a limb. He smiled, but there was truth underneath the humor. I haven't been out alone, really alone in 6 months. It's strange. The restaurant was Korean, intimate and elegant, with private booths and soft lighting. Not ostentatious, but clearly expensive. The staff greeted Hyun Min by name, with deference that suggested he was either a regular or someone important. You promised honesty, Eliona said once they were seated. So start there. Who are you really, Hyun Min? What's the family business you never quite explain? He'd been expecting this. She could see it in the way he set down his menu, the careful breath he took before speaking. My family controls significant portions of Seattle's import-export business. Legitimate trade in goods from Korea and other Asian countries. And the illegitimate parts? A pause, then. Protection services for Korean businesses in the international district. Money lending, some gambling operations. What Americans call organized crime, though we prefer to think of it as community management. The word should have made her stand up and leave. Should have confirmed every warning bell that had been ringing since Shayna's first cautionary comment. Instead, Eliona found herself asking, "Are you in danger? Is Sua?" "Less than you'd think. My father was violent, made enemies through brutality. I'm trying to run things differently. More diplomacy, less bloodshed. But yes, there's always risk, always people who'd like to see the Kang family fall." Kang Hyun Min. The name meant nothing to Eliona, but she filed it away. "Did your wife know about the business?" Ji-hai knew everything, hated parts of it, made me promise to transition toward completely legitimate operations eventually. That was the plan. Build enough legal income to walk away from the rest. We were going to move to Portland after Sua was born. Start fresh, away from the family obligations. His voice went rough. "That's not possible now. I can't leave. Too many people depend on the stability I provide. So you're trapped." "I'm committed. There's a difference." The food arrived. Beautifully presented dishes Eliona couldn't name, but that tasted incredible. They ate in silence for a moment, the weight of confession settling between them. "Are you going to run?" Hyun Min asked finally. "Now that you know," Eliona considered. The smart answer was yes. Walk away from the dangerous crime boss with the tragic past and the crying baby. Protect herself, maintain boundaries, return to her safe, predictable life. "I should," she admitted. "Everything logical says I should thank you for dinner, wish you well, and never see you again. But I keep thinking about Sua, about how peaceful she is when I hold her, about the fact that she's 6 months old and has barely known a moment without distress, and somehow, for reasons I don't fully understand, I can give her that." Eliona met his eyes. "I can't walk away from that. From her. And me?" Hyun Min's voice was quiet, vulnerable. "Can you walk away from me?" The question hung there, enormous in its implications. Eliona thought about the past week, about quiet conversations and shared grief, and the way Hyun Min looked at her, like she was the answer to prayers he'd stopped believing would be answered. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I don't know you well enough yet. Don't understand your world or what being part of it would mean. But I'd like to find out, if you're patient enough to let me." Hyun Min reached across the table, took her hand gently. "I can be patient. I've learned that lesson well these past 6 months. But Eli, you need to understand, my life is complicated, dangerous sometimes. Not the fairy tale that single fathers and cute babies might suggest. I'm not looking for a fairy tale. I'm looking for something real. Even if real is messy and complicated and doesn't fit into neat boxes." His thumb brushed across her knuckles, sending electricity up her arm. "Then let's find out together. Slowly, carefully. No expectations except honesty." "And Sua? What about her? What happens if she gets attached to me? If I become a fixture in her life and then this?" Eliona gestured between them. "Doesn't work out? I don't want to be another loss she has to grieve." Hyun Min's expression grew serious. "That's a fair concern, and I don't have a perfect answer. But Eli, she's already attached to you. In 1 week, you've become the person who can calm her when nothing else works. If you walk away now, that's already a loss. So maybe the question isn't how to avoid attachment, but how to honor it. How to be present for her even if things between us don't work romantically. The maturity of the answer surprised her. This wasn't a man looking for a quick replacement mother for his daughter. This was someone thinking long-term, considering all the angles, trying to do right by everyone involved. Okay, Eliona said softly. Let's try. Let's see where this goes. But Hyun-min, I need you to keep being honest. About your business, about your grief, about what you need from me. Can you do that? I can. And I need the same from you. If this becomes too much, if my world is too dangerous or complicated, you tell me. No martyr complex, no suffering in silence. Deal? Deal. They sealed it with a handshake that turned into held hands, fingers intertwining naturally, and Eliana felt the ground shift beneath her feet again. The next 3 months were a study in contrasts. Public Eliona continued working at Solace Cafe, serving coffee and pretending her life was normal. Private Eliona spent nearly every free moment with Hyun-min and Soo-ah, learning the rhythms of their small, complicated family. She learned that Hyun-min was an early riser, often awake at 5 a.m. with Soo-ah handling the first feeding and diaper change before his sister arrived to help. That he was meticulous about Soo-ah's schedule, tracking every feeding and sleep cycle in a detailed log that spoke of desperate attempts at control in an uncontrollable situation. She learned that Soo-ah's crying had patterns, worse in the late afternoon, better in the mornings, triggered by certain sounds that reminded Hyun-min painfully of Ji-hai's absence. A particular song, the smell of a specific perfume, the sight of other mothers with their babies. I can't take her to the park sometimes, he admitted one evening. Soo-ah dozing in Eliona's arms while they sat in his penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay. There's a playground near our building, always full of mothers and children, and Soo-ah sees them, and I see her watching, and I wonder if she knows what she's missing. She knows she's loved, Eliona said firmly. That's what matters. Is it enough? It has to be. It's what you have to give. But Eliona also learned that she could give something else. Her presence seemed to soothe Soo-ah in ways that went beyond simple technique. The baby would calm at the sound of her voice, reach for her when she entered the room, sleep more peacefully when Eliona held her. She thinks you're her mother, Hyun-min's sister Minseo said one afternoon, watching Eliona rock Soo-ah. The way she looks at you, responds to you, that's attachment. I know you're not trying to replace Hi, but Eli, babies don't understand complicated adult feelings. They just know who makes them feel safe. And for Soo-ah, that's you. Minseo's expression was gentle. My brother sees it too. The way you mother her so naturally. Mothering. Was that what she was doing? Eliana looked down at Soo-ah, now 8 months old, growing and changing daily. Somewhere along the way, between cafe visits and evening feedings, between learning to make Korean rice porridge and memorizing the specific way Soo-ah liked to be held, Eliona had become essential. I love her, she realized aloud, the confession escaping before she could think better of it. Is that weird? I've known her for 3 months and I love her like she's mine. That's not weird. That's beautiful. Minseo smiled. And it's exactly what Soo-ah needs. What my brother needs, though he's probably too proud to say it. Hyun-min wasn't too proud. That night, after Minseo left and Soo-ah was finally asleep in her crib, he pulled Eliona onto the balcony overlooking the city. I heard what you said to Minseo about loving Soo-ah. Eliona's heart hammered. I'm sorry if that's too much too fast. I know we're still figuring things out. It's not too much. It's everything. Hyun-min took her hands, pulled her close. Eli, I've been trying to find the right words for weeks now, trying to figure out how to tell you that somewhere between that first day in the cafe and now, you've become the center of my world. Both our worlds. Hyun-min, let me finish, please. He took a breath. I'm still grieving Ji-hye. I probably will be for the rest of my life. She was my first love, the mother of my child, and losing her broke something in me I don't think will ever fully heal. But Eli, you're not a replacement. You're something new. Someone who walked into my life when I was drowning and offered your hand without expecting anything in return. Tears pricked Elena's eyes. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to love a man who's still grieving his wife. Don't know how to mother a child who's not mine. This isn't what I planned for my life. I know, God, I know. Hyunmin's forehead pressed against hers. And if you need to walk away, I'll understand. I'll make sure you can still see still be in her life, because losing you would destroy her. But Eli, I need you to know I'm falling in love with you. Have been for weeks. And it terrifies me because I didn't think I'd ever feel this again. Elena's breath caught. You love me? I love you. I love the way you sing to Sue, when you think no one's listening. I love that you learned to make Korean food because you wanted her to have her culture. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you see past the dangerous parts of my life to the man underneath. His hands cupped her face. I love you, Eliana Clark, and I'm asking you to take a chance on us, on this messy, complicated family we're building. Eliana looked into his eyes, dark, intense, full of hope and fear and desperate honesty. Thought about the past 3 months, about how her life had transformed from lonely routine into something rich with purpose and connection. I love you too, she whispered. I've been trying not to, trying to stay rational and protect myself. But Hyunmin, I love you, and I love Sue, and I want this, want us, even though it's terrifying. He kissed her then, soft and reverent and full of promise. And when they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Elena felt like she'd crossed some invisible threshold. This was real. This was happening. Will you move in with us? Hyunmin asked. Not right away if you're not ready. But soon? I want Sue, to have stability. Want you here when she wakes up, when she goes to sleep. Want to build a life with you. That's fast. I know. But Eli, I've already lost so much time to grief and fear. I don't want to waste any more. If you need to wait, I'll respect that. But if you're sure about us, then why delay? Eliana thought about her tiny studio apartment, about the loneliness she'd been pretending wasn't crushing. Thought about waking up to Sue's babbling, about morning coffee with Hyunmin, about being part of something bigger than herself. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll move in. But Hyunmin, we do this right. I'm not just the nanny. I'm your partner. That means I have a say in how we raise Sue, in household decisions, in everything. You're not the nanny. He paused, searching for words. You're Sue's mother. Not biologically, not as a replacement for Ji-hai, but in every way that matters. And you're my partner, my equal. I wouldn't want it any other way. They sealed it with another kiss, and through the open balcony door, Eliana heard Sue stirring in her crib, making the small sounds that preceded waking. Without thinking, she moved toward the nursery, Hyunmin following, and they stood together watching the baby stretch and yawn. Hi, sweet girl, Eliana murmured, lifting Sue into her arms. Did you have a good nap? Sue smiled, that gorgeous, gummy smile that lit up her whole face, and reached for Eliana's face with chubby hands. And in that moment, Eliana understood what Mincio had meant. This wasn't about biology or legal documents. This was family built from choice and love and desperate need. My girl, Hyunmin said softly, wrapping his arms around both of them. My whole world. Eliana moved in 3 weeks later, her meager possessions looking sparse in the enormous penthouse. Hyunmin had offered to buy her new furniture, new clothes, anything she wanted, but Eliana had refused everything except the essentials. I need to do this my way, she'd explained. Need to know I'm here because I choose to be, not because you made it impossible to leave. He'd understood, backed off, and Eliana loved him more for it. The adjustment period was harder than expected. Learning to live with someone, to navigate their rhythms and quirks, to balance independence with partnership. Learning to parent together, to present a united front when Sue tested boundaries or had difficult nights. She needs a bedtime routine, Eliana insisted one evening after Sue had fought sleep for 2 hours. Consistent timing, same sequence every night. It'll help her feel secure. I've tried routines. They don't work with her. Because you keep changing them when they're hard. Hyunmin, consistency is key with babies, even when it's difficult. Their first real fight, standing in the nursery while Sue wailed in her crib. But they worked through it, compromised, built a routine together that actually helped. And Eliona learned that partnership meant sometimes pushing back, even when it was uncomfortable. The nights were hardest. Su-ah still woke frequently, crying for reasons neither of them could always identify. And sometimes in the 3 a.m. darkness, Hyun-min would hold the baby and weep, grief crashing over him in waves that no amount of love could fully prevent. "I'm sorry," he'd say, trying to compose himself. "I'm sorry you have to see this. Don't apologize for grieving." Eliona would take rock her gently while Hyun-min pulled himself together. Hi was your wife, the love of your life. You're allowed to miss her. But you're here now. I should be able to move on. Love isn't a replacement economy. You don't stop loving someone because you found someone new. You just expand. Make room for both. Eliana had learned this from her own experience, from watching her mother navigate loving her stepfather while still honoring her late first husband. Slowly, painfully, they built something new, a family that honored the past while reaching for the future. Eliona started calling herself Sua's bonus mom, a term that felt right, acknowledging Ji-Hai's irreplaceable role while claiming her own space. And Su-ah bloomed. The constant crying gradually eased as she grew older, more secure, more certain of the love surrounding her. By 10 months, she was babbling constantly, reaching for both Eliona and Hyun-min with equal enthusiasm, sleeping through most nights. "She's happy," Min Seo observed during a family dinner. "Really, truly happy. I haven't seen her like this since, well, ever." "She has what she needs now," Hyun-min said, hand finding Alina's under the table. "Stability, love, a mother who chose her." The word mother still sometimes caught Alina off guard. She'd never planned to be a mother this young this way. But watching take her first steps, hearing her first word, Mama, directed at Eliona, she couldn't imagine her life any other way. 6 months after moving in, Hyun-min proposed, not with fanfare or elaborate planning, but on an ordinary Tuesday evening while they were giving Su-ah a bath. The baby was splashing happily, soaking both of them, and Hyun-min just looked at Eliona and said, "Marry me." "What?" Eliona laughed, thinking she'd misheard over Su-ah's delighted shrieks. "Marry me. Make this official. Let me give you and Su-ah my name, my protection, my everything." He produced a ring box from his pocket. Apparently, he'd been carrying it around for days, waiting for the right moment. "I love you, Eli. I want to spend my life with you. Want to give Su-ah the family she deserves. Will you marry me?" Eliana looked at the ring. Beautiful, elegant, exactly her style, though she'd never discussed jewelry with him. And then at Su-ah, laughing and splashing, completely secure in their love. Then at Hyun-min, vulnerable and hopeful, and offering her everything. "Yes," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you. I'll be Su-ah's mom officially. I'll be your wife. Yes to all of it." He slipped the ring on her finger right there in the bathroom, both of them dripping wet, and they kissed over Su-ah's head while the baby clapped like she understood the significance. "We'll do it right," Hyun-min promised. "Big wedding if you want it, or small and intimate. Whatever makes you happy. I want your family there, my family, and I want Su-ah in the ceremony. She's part of this. She's why we met. She's definitely part of it. Maybe flower girl? Is 1-year-old too young for flower girl? Probably, but we'll make it work." They married 3 months later in a beautiful ceremony that blended Korean and African-American traditions. Eliana wore a hanbok for the traditional Korean ceremony, then changed into a white dress her mother had helped her choose. Su-ah toddled down the aisle in Min Seo's arms, wearing a tiny hanbok and reaching for Eliana throughout the entire ceremony. The vows were simple but profound. Hyun-min promised to honor both the woman who'd given Su-ah life and the woman who'd chosen to raise her. Eliona promised to love Su-ah as her own, to build a family that made space for grief and joy, past and future. "I take you, Kang Hyun-min, as my husband. I take Su-ah as my daughter. I promise to love you both with everything I have for as long as I live." When they kissed, Su-ah squealed and clapped, making the whole congregation laugh. And Eliona felt something settle in her chest, the certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Marriage changed things in subtle ways. The legal bond made Eliona feel more secure, more willing to push for the changes she wanted to see in Hyunmin's life. I want you out of the criminal side of the business, she said one night after Sue was asleep. Completely. Not in 5 years or 10 years. Now. Eli, it's not that simple. I know it's not simple. But Hyunmin, we have a daughter. We're talking about maybe having more children. And I will not raise them in a world where their father could be killed or arrested at any moment. Her voice was firm. You promised Ji-hai you'd transition to legitimate business. It's time to keep that promise. The family depends on me. The community will adapt, find new leadership. But your first obligation is to your actual family. To Sue, to me, to the life we're building. Eliona took his hands. I'm not asking you to abandon your responsibilities overnight. I'm asking you to make a plan. Set a timeline. Start delegating. Show me you're serious about choosing us over everything else. Hyunmin was quiet for a long time. Then, 2 years, give me 2 years to transition leadership. Build up the legitimate businesses enough to walk away from the rest. I'll start tomorrow. I'll hold you to that. I know you will. That's why I married you. He kept his word. Slowly, carefully, he began extracting himself from the dangerous parts of the family business. Promoted trusted lieutenants. Built up legal import-export operations. Invested in real estate and technology startups. It wasn't easy. There were threats, power struggles, moments when Eliona feared they'd made a terrible mistake. But Hyunmin was methodical and determined, and he had something his father never had. A reason to want out that was stronger than any loyalty to criminal empire. I'm doing this for Sue, he told Eliona one night after a particularly difficult negotiation with rival families. So she can grow up without being ashamed of her father's work. So she can be proud of where she comes from. Sue was 2 years old now, verbal and energetic and completely secure in her parents' love. She called Eliona mommy and Hyunmin daddy with equal enthusiasm and showed no signs of the profound distress that had marked her first year of life. She doesn't remember, Min Seo said, watching Sue play during a family gathering. The crying, the grief, how lost she was. She just knows love now. That's all she needs to know, Eliona said softly. The rest we carry for her. They talked about Ji-hai from the beginning, determined that Sue would know her birth mother. Photos throughout the house, stories shared regularly, visits to Ji-hai's grave on important occasions. Eliona had insisted on it, despite Hyunmin's initial reluctance. She needs to know where she comes from, Eliona had said. Needs to know she was wanted, loved, that Ji-hai died trying to bring her into the world. That's part of her story. And what about you? Doesn't it hurt constantly acknowledging the woman I loved before you? Sometimes, but Hyunmin, Ji-hae isn't my competition. She's Sua's mother. She'll always be that. I'm the mother who gets to be here. And that's enough. It was enough, more than enough. Watching Sue grow, being there for every milestone, every scraped knee and triumph and ordinary moment. It filled Eliona's heart in ways she'd never imagined. And then, 3 years into their marriage, Eliona discovered she was pregnant. I'm scared, she admitted to Hyunmin, holding the positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. What if something goes wrong? What if what happened to Ji-hai happens to me? The fear was visceral, real. She'd heard the stories, knew the statistics, understood that childbirth was still dangerous despite modern medicine. Then I'll be there, Hyunmin said, pulling her close despite his own terror. Every doctor's appointment, every test, every moment. And Eli, I will keep you safe, whatever it takes. You can't promise that. You couldn't keep Ji-hai safe. The words were harsh but necessary. Hyunmin flinched but didn't pull away. You're right. I can't promise perfect safety, but I can promise I won't take any chances. We'll have the best doctors, the best care, every precaution possible. And if anything seems wrong, anything at all, we act immediately. I don't know if I can do this. What if I'm too scared? What if I can't be brave enough? Then I'll be brave for both of us, and Sue will help. She's so excited about being a big sister. He pressed a hand to Eliona's still flat stomach. We can do this, together. The pregnancy was closely monitored, every appointment attended by both Hyunmin and a small army of specialists he'd hired. Eliona was scanned, tested, examined so thoroughly that she joked she'd probably glow in the dark from all the medical imaging. But underneath the jokes was genuine fear. Fear that built as her belly grew, as the due date approached, as she faced the reality that she might not survive giving her child life. "I need you to promise me something," she told Hyunmin 2 weeks before the due date. "If something happens to me, if I die, you raise our children together. You and Sua and the baby. You don't retreat into grief. You stay present for them. Eli, promise me, swear it on Sua's life, that you'll be there for them even if I'm not, that you won't leave them orphans in every way that matters." Hyunmin's eyes filled with tears. "I promise, but nothing's going to happen to you. I won't let it." But of course, he couldn't control everything. Labor started in the middle of the night, and the fear was so intense Elena could barely breathe through contractions. At the hospital, surrounded by doctors and monitors and Hyunmin's terrified but determined face, she clung to the thought of Sua, their first daughter, the child who taught her how to love like a mother and push through the fear. Daniel Hyunseo Kang was born at 6:14 a.m. after 12 hours of labor, named for Eleona's late grandfather, Hyunseo meaning auspicious omen in Korean. He was perfect and healthy, nursing well, sleeping in contented stretches that Eleona barely remembered from Sua's infancy. "He's so calm," she marveled on their second day in the hospital. "Is this normal? Are babies supposed to be this easy?" "Some are." Sua wasn't, because she was grieving something she couldn't name. "Daniel has everything he needs from the start." Hyunmin kissed her forehead gently. "You gave him that. A mother who's present, who's not lost in grief. It makes all the difference." Sue met her baby brother on day 3, carefully supervised and coached on gentle touches. At 4 years old, she was both excited and uncertain, staring at the tiny baby with wide eyes. "That's your brother, sweet girl," Eleona said softly. "Daniel. He's going to need his big sister to teach him everything." "He's so small," Sua whispered. "Was I that small?" "Even smaller. You were a tiny peanut when you were born." "Did my first mommy hold me? Before?" Sua's voice trailed off. At 4, she understood the basics, that Ji Hai had died bringing her into the world, that it wasn't Sua's fault, that she was loved by 2 mothers even though only one was here. "She did," Hyunmin said, emotion thick in his voice. "For 36 minutes. She held you and looked at you and loved you with everything she had. And then you came," Sua said to Eleona, with the simple certainty of a child. "And you stayed. And I stayed. Because I love you. Because you're my daughter. And now Daniel is here too." Sua reached out carefully to touch her brother's tiny hand. "We're a family." "We're a family," Eleona confirmed, looking at her husband and her children. One by choice, one by birth, both completely hers. Forever. The transition to a family of 4 was chaotic but joyful. Daniel was an easy baby, but having 2 children under 5 meant constant motion, constant needs, constant balancing acts. Eleona took 3 months of maternity leave from the part time work she'd started at a family counseling center, while Hyunmin worked from home as much as possible. "I'm keeping my promise," he told Eleona 6 months after Daniel's birth. "The transition is complete. As of next week, I'm fully out of any illegal operations, just legitimate businesses from here on." "Really? Completely out?" "Completely. I kept my word to you. To Ji Hai, to our children." He pulled her close despite Daniel nursing between them and Sue, watching cartoons nearby. "I'm just a boring businessman now. Import, export, real estate, investment portfolios. Nothing that could land me in prison or get me killed." Relief washed through Eleona so intensely her knees went weak. "You mean it." "I mean it. Because I look at Daniel, at Sue, at you, and I can't imagine risking losing any of this. The criminal life. It was my father's legacy, not mine. I'm building a different legacy now." "What kind of legacy?" "The kind where my children are proud of what their father does, where they can tell people my name without fear or shame, where I get to grow old with you instead of dying young in some power struggle." He kissed her softly. "The kind that matters." Sue chose that moment to climb onto the couch with them, careful around her baby brother, snuggling into Eleona's side. "Daddy, can we go to the park later? I want to show Daniel the ducks. Of course, sweetheart. After Daniel finishes eating and your mommy rests a bit. Okay. Sue. Rested her head against Aliona's shoulder. Mommy, I'm glad you came to help me when I was a baby. I'm glad you stayed. Aliona's throat tightened. Me too, baby. Me too. That afternoon, they went to the park as a family. Hyunmin pushed Daniel in the stroller while Eliona held Sue-ah's hand, watching her daughter chase ducks and laugh with pure, uncomplicated joy. Other families dotted the playground, mothers with children, fathers teaching toddlers to climb, the ordinary tableau of domestic life. And Eliona realized they were part of it now. Not the criminal underworld, not the dangerous life they'd been carefully extracting themselves from, but just a family. Normal, boring, beautifully ordinary. What are you thinking? Hyunmin asked, Daniel asleep in his arms. That we made it? Against all odds, despite everything? We actually made it. Eliona watched Sue-ah play, this child who'd once cried inconsolably because she was grieving a mother she'd never known. She's happy, really truly happy, because of you, because you saw what she needed when everyone else was just trying to stop the crying. You understood that she wasn't broken. She was just missing something essential. Hyunmin's voice was thick with emotion. You gave her that, gave us both that. And you gave me purpose, a family, a life that matters. Eliona turned to face him. 5 years ago, I was serving coffee and wondering if this was all there was. Now I have you, Sue. Daniel. I have everything. Almost everything, Hyunmin said mysteriously. What does that mean? It means I bought the building where we met, the cafe. Eliona blinked. You bought Solace Cafe? The whole building. I'm renovating the upper floors into a community center. Family counseling, parenting resources, support groups, all the things you've been talking about wanting to create. And the cafe stays on the ground floor because that's where our story started, where everything changed. Tears pricked Eliona's eyes. Hyunmin, that's incredible. I want you to run it. The community center. Use your psychology degree, your training, your lived experience. Help other families the way you helped ours. He shifted Daniel carefully, pulling an envelope from his pocket. The deed is in both our names. It's ours, our legacy. Eliona opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was the deed to the building, officially listing Kang Hyun-min and Eliona Clark. Kang as joint owners, and beneath it, architectural plans for the renovation. Beautiful, thoughtful spaces designed for healing and connection. This is what Ji-hai would have wanted, Hyunmin said softly. Something beautiful built from grief. Something that helps others. I think she'd be proud of what we've built, of how we've honored her memory while creating our own story. I hope so. I hope wherever she is, she knows Sue-ah is loved and safe and happy. She knows, because you made sure of it. From that very first day when you told me Sue-ah just needed a mom, you saw the truth and you didn't run from it. You stepped into it. Sue-ah came running back then, breathless and laughing. Mommy, Daddy, did you see? I almost caught a duck. We saw, sweetheart. You were so fast. Eliona scooped her daughter up, holding her close. Can we come back tomorrow? And the day after? I want to come every day. We'll come as often as we can, Hyunmin promised. We have all the time in the world now. Because he did. They did. No more looking over his shoulder. No more dangerous deals. No more living half in shadow. Just sunlight and park visits and the sweet, ordinary chaos of raising children. 2 years later, Solace Community Center opened its doors. The cafe remained on the ground floor, still serving coffee and providing that same warm refuge it had always offered. But the upper floors now house counseling rooms, support groups, parenting classes, and resources for families in crisis. Eliona ran it with the same fierce compassion she'd shown Hyunmin and Sue-ah that first day. She hired carefully, built programs thoughtfully, created spaces where grief and joy could coexist, where families could find help without judgment. The center's signature program was for single parents, a support group that met weekly, offering practical help alongside emotional support. Hyunmin often spoke at these sessions, sharing his story of single fatherhood, of drowning in grief while trying to meet an infant's needs. I was sitting in that cafe downstairs, he'd tell new members, with a screaming baby and no idea what to do. And a waitress I'd never met looked at my daughter and said, She just needs a mom. It was the truest thing anyone had said to me in 6 months, and it changed everything. Sue, I was 6 now, confident and bright, with no memory of those dark early months. She helped at the center sometimes, playing with younger siblings while parents attended sessions, naturally nurturing in a way that made Eleona's heart swell. She's going to be a teacher, Eleona predicted, watching Sue carefully show a toddler how to stack blocks. Or a counselor. Something that helps people. She learned from the best, Hyunmin said, wrapping his arms around Eleona from behind. Speaking of which, I have news. Good news or bad news? Good, very good. The adoption is final. Legally, officially, you're Sue-ah's mother now. Eleona's breath caught. They'd started the adoption process 2 years ago, but legal proceedings moved slowly. And now... Really? It's done? It's done. You're on her birth certificate as her mother. When people ask about her family, you don't have to explain complicated circumstances. You're just her mom. Period. Tears streamed down Eleona's face. She'd been Sue-ah's mother in every meaningful way for 6 years, but having it recognized legally felt monumental. Can we tell her? Let's tell her together. They called Sue-ah over, and she came running, Daniel toddling after her on unsteady 2-year-old legs. Sweet girl, we have something important to tell you, Eleona said, kneeling to Sue-ah's level. You know how we've been working with lawyers and judges? Sue-ah nodded seriously. To make you my real mom, to make it official legally, and today the judge said yes. So now on all your papers, on your birth certificate, I'm listed as your mother. You were always my mother, Sue-ah said with 6-year-old certainty, even before the judge said so. I know, baby, but now everyone knows. Now it's official. Sue, I thought about this for a moment. What about my first mom? Ji-hai? Is she still my mom too? Always, Hyunmin said firmly. You have 2 mothers, Sue-ah. One who gave you life and one who chose you. Both loved you completely. Both are part of who you are. Okay. Sue-ah hugged Eleona fiercely. I'm glad you chose me. I'm glad you didn't leave when I cried all the time. I'll never leave, I promise. You're mine, sweet girl, forever and always. That night after both children were asleep, Eleona and Hyunmin stood in the nursery doorway, watching their daughter and son sleep peacefully. We should have another, Hyunmin said suddenly. Another what? Another baby. Give Sue-ah and Daniel a sibling. Make our family complete. Eleona looked at him, surprised. You want 3 children? I want everything with you. More children, more years, more ordinary moments that feel extraordinary because we're together. He pulled her close. We built something beautiful from grief, Eli. Let's keep building. Okay, she whispered. Let's have another baby. Let's keep building. 9 months later, they welcomed their daughter, Grace Ji-hai Kang. Grace for the grace that had brought them together, Ji-hai to honor the woman whose death had paradoxically created their family. Labor was easier this time, delivery straightforward. And when Eleona held her daughter for the first time, she felt complete in a way she'd never imagined possible. She looks like Sue-ah did as a baby, Hyunmin observed, tears tracking down his face. Like Ji-hai. She's beautiful. They're all beautiful. Eleona looked at her husband, at this man who'd walked into her cafe 6 years ago, desperate and drowning, and felt overwhelming gratitude. We did good, didn't we? We did incredible. Built a family from broken pieces. Created joy from grief. Learned that love doesn't replace, it multiplies. Sue-ah and Daniel met their baby sister the next day, both awestruck by the tiny human. Sue-ah held Grace carefully, whispering secrets about being a big sister, about how much love was waiting for her. I'll teach her everything, Sue-ah promised. Like you taught me. Like my first mom would have taught me if she was here. Your first mom would be so proud of you, Eleona said softly, of the kind, loving person you're becoming. Because you showed me how to be kind. You and Daddy. Sue-ah looked up with wise, ancient eyes. Mommy, I'm glad I cried so much as a baby, because that's how you found us. Eleona's heart clenched. Me too, sweet girl. Me too. Years passed in the beautiful blur of family life. Sue-ah grew into a thoughtful 10-year-old. Daniel became a rambunctious 6-year-old, and Grace surprised them all with a personality that was pure sunshine, laughing constantly, spreading joy everywhere she went. The community center thrived. Eleona's programs helped hundreds of families navigate crisis, grief, and the complicated work of building connection. She'd published a book about her experience, Chosen, Building Family Beyond Biology, that became required reading in social work programs. Hyun Min's legitimate businesses flourished. The import-export company expanded internationally. The real estate portfolio grew, and he became known as a philanthropist rather than a criminal. When people mentioned the Kang name now, it was with respect, not fear. "We made it," Eleona said on their 7th wedding anniversary, standing on the balcony of their home, watching the city lights. "Against all odds, we actually made it. You made it. You saw a crying baby and a desperate father and decided to stay. Everything good in my life comes from that choice. Everything good in my life comes from that choice, too. I was so lost before you and Sue. Just going through motions, pretending I was okay. And then suddenly I had purpose. Family. Everything that matters. Do you ever regret it? Taking on someone else's child, someone else's grief, the complications of my past?" Eleona turned to face him. "Never. Not once. Hyun Min Soo isn't someone else's child. She's mine. From that first moment I held her and she finally stopped crying. And your grief, your past, that's not something I took on. It's part of who you are. Part of us. I love you, more than I have words for. I love you too. And I love the life we built. The family we created from impossible circumstances." Inside they could hear the children. Sue, reading to her siblings. Grace's delighted laughter. Daniel's animated storytelling. The sound of family, of home, of everything they'd fought to create. "You know what I think about sometimes," Hyun Min said. "That day in the cafe. If you'd been on break, or if I'd chosen a different place, or if you'd been too busy to notice us, our whole lives would be different. I don't think so. I think we were always going to find each other. Maybe not that day, not that way, but somehow, because Sue, needed me, and I needed you both. Fate? Love. Recognizing what we needed in each other and having the courage to reach for it." They stood in comfortable silence, years of partnership allowing for quiet moments. Inside, Grace called for her mother, and Eleona smiled. "Duty calls. It always does. But Eli, thank you for choosing us, for staying, for building this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life. Thank you for letting me, for seeing me as more than just help, for giving me a family." They went inside together, to their children and their life and their love. And as Eleona scooped Grace into her arms while Sue showed her a drawing and Daniel demanded attention, she felt complete. This was what she'd been meant for all along. Not the psychology degree gathering dust, not the cafe job, not the aimless waiting for life to begin. This motherhood, partnership, building something meaningful from broken pieces, this was her purpose. "Mommy, look." Sue held up her drawing. "It's our family, all 5 of us. And look." She pointed to a figure drawn in the corner, slightly translucent. "That's Ji-Hai, my first mom. She's watching over us." Eleona's eyes filled with tears. "That's beautiful, sweet girl, so beautiful." "She's happy, we're happy," Sue said with absolute certainty. "I can feel it. She's glad I have you." "I'm glad I have you too. All of you." Eleona looked at her family. This impossible, beautiful family, built from a crying baby, and a desperate father, and a waitress who'd decided to stay. "I'm the luckiest person in the world." And as Hyun Min pulled her close, children clustering around them, Eleona knew it was true. Not lucky in the conventional sense. Nothing about their story had been easy. But lucky in the ways that mattered. Lucky to have found love in unexpected places. Lucky to have built family from choice and commitment. Lucky to wake up every day surrounded by people who'd chosen each other, again and again. The baby who'd cried for a mother had found one. The widower, drowning in grief, had found love again. The waitress searching for purpose had found family. And together they'd created something neither biology nor tragedy could break. A bond forged in crisis, strengthened by choice and made eternal by love. Perfect.